When sight turns into sound and sound into insight, you're truly exploring vision. A podcast by Novar.
All right, ready to dive in. Today we're looking at something you might not think about too often. The link between what we eat and how healthy our eyes are, especially when it comes to myopia.
Oh yeah, it's pretty fascinating.
We're going to be breaking down this presentation called Nutrition and Myopia. It's by Gabriela Rodríguez and María Müller.
It's a good one.
I think our listeners might be surprised to learn how much their diet can impact their vision. And we're not just talking about the old carrots are good for your eyes thing.
Right, there's way more to it than that.
So, should we just jump right in?
Let's do it.
Okay. The presentation starts off by talking about epigenetics and how it plays a role in myopia.
Yeah, that's a pretty complex topic, but basically it means that things like what we eat and how we live can actually switch our genes on or off.
So it's not just about the genes we're born with.
Exactly. Our environment and our choices have a big impact too.
So are you saying that we have more control over our eye health than we might think?
Absolutely. The presentation actually says that we're born with about 50% of our epigenetic predisposition, but the other 50% is shaped by our lifestyle. Pretty cool, huh?
That's actually really empowering to hear.
I think so too.
Okay, but honestly, when most people think about eye health, I don't think diet is the first thing that comes to mind.
It's probably not, no.
Yeah.
But this presentation really challenges that. Like, did you know that sunlight is super important for eye health?
Yeah, they talked about that.
It's not just about getting vitamin D or feeling good. Sunlight actually helps our bodies produce dopamine and nitric oxide, and those things help regulate eye growth and prevent myopia.
I remember they even mentioned a program called Rock 711.
Right. That program encourages kids to spend at least 7 hours a week outdoors, get an hour of physical activity every day, and limit their screen time. It's all about creating healthy habits from a young age.
So it's not just about what we eat, but also how we live, right?
It's all connected. But speaking of food, there's a lot to unpack there, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. What were some of the things that stood out to you in terms of diet?
Well, one thing that really stuck with me is how important omega-3 fatty acids are for our eyes. Like, did you know that 90% of our photoreceptors are made of omega-3s?
Wow, 90%. That's a lot.
Yeah.
I guess that salmon dinner is looking pretty good right about now.
Yeah, maybe we should both add that to the menu tonight. But on a less positive note, the presentation also talks about how the typical Western diet can be harmful to our eyes.
You mean all the processed food, sugar, and stuff like that? Let me guess, not so good for our vision.
Not really. They actually link this type of diet to increased insulin resistance, which has been connected to myopia in some studies.
So it's not just about what we're not eating enough of, but also what we might be eating too much of.
Exactly.
So what's the antidote to all of that?
Well, they call it building our antioxidant army.
Okay, tell me more about this army.
We're talking about nutrients like beta-carotene, lutein, zeaxanthin, and a whole bunch of vitamins and minerals like vitamin C, E, D, and B, along with zinc, selenium, and taurine.
So basically, eating a rainbow of fruits and vegetables is a good idea.
Exactly. Those colorful foods are packed with antioxidants that help protect our eyes from damage.
They even gave some specific examples.
They did. For instance, they mentioned that lutein and zeaxanthin, which you can find in leafy greens, egg yolks, and colorful fruits and veggies, can actually concentrate in the macula of the eye.
What does that do?
Well, it can help reduce the risk of cataracts and even improve how clearly we see. Pretty impressive, right?
That's amazing. It's like those brightly colored foods aren't just pretty to look at, they're actively protecting our vision.
I love that way of thinking about it.
Okay, so we've talked about what we eat and how sunlight plays a role. But the presentation also goes into something I find super interesting, the connection between our gut and our eyes.
Yeah, the gut-eye connection. It's pretty wild.
They call the gut our second brain because it impacts so many things in our body. And now we're learning that it can even affect our vision.
Right. It all comes back to the importance of having a healthy gut microbiome.
And how does that tie into eye health specifically?
Well, when our gut microbiome is out of balance, it can cause inflammation throughout the body. And that inflammation can impact our eyes too.
So it's like everything is connected.
Exactly. So we were talking about how important it is to have a healthy gut microbiome.
Yeah, the gut-eye connection is pretty fascinating.
It really is. And the presentation makes a great point about how our gut microbiome is like a whole ecosystem. You need lots of different species to keep everything in balance.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do we even start to cultivate that kind of ecosystem in our gut? Where do we begin?
Well, the presentation dives into prebiotics and probiotics, but it's not as easy as just eating a bunch of yogurt.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. What's the difference between prebiotics and probiotics anyway?
Sure. So prebiotics are basically food for the good bacteria in our gut. Think of things like fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. Those are all high in fiber, which our good bacteria love to eat.
So it's like we're feeding the troops.
Yeah, exactly. And probiotics are the actual good bacteria themselves. They add more good guys to our gut army.
Got it. So prebiotics are the food and probiotics are the soldiers.
Perfect analogy. And you can find probiotics in fermented foods like yogurt, sauerkraut, kimchi, and some cheeses.
I'm noticing a theme here. Eating a variety of whole foods seems to be a recurring theme for overall health, and now we're seeing how it extends to our eyes too.
That's a great observation. And it's not just about eating any old probiotic either. Different types of bacteria have different benefits, so it's worth doing a little research or talking to a healthcare professional to figure out what's best for you.
So it's about being targeted and understanding what your individual gut needs. That makes sense. Speaking of being targeted, the presentation mentioned a lot of specific nutrients that are important for eye health. Should we try to remember all of those?
Don't worry, you don't need to memorize a textbook. The main takeaway is to focus on those whole, unprocessed foods we were just talking about, especially the ones that are rich in antioxidants.
Oh yeah, those antioxidants are like little superheroes for our eyes, right?
Exactly. They protect our cells from damage caused by free radicals. Free radicals are basically unstable molecules that can cause all sorts of trouble in our bodies, including in our eyes.
So antioxidants are always fighting off these bad guys to keep our eyes healthy.
That's a great way to think about it.
And where do we find these antioxidant warriors?
This is where eating the rainbow really comes in handy. Colorful fruits and vegetables are the best sources of antioxidants. Think berries, leafy greens, citrus fruits, bell peppers. The more colorful your plate, the better.
Okay, I'm loving this visual. It's not just about healthy eating. It's about making our meals as vibrant and beautiful as possible.
Exactly. And don't forget about healthy fats. The presentation highlighted omega-3 fatty acids, which are found in fatty fish like salmon, tuna, and mackerel, as well as in things like walnuts and flax seeds.
Oh, that's right. They're essential for eye health. And remember, 90% of our photoreceptors are actually made up of omega-3s. It's like we're giving our eyes the building blocks they need to function properly when we eat those healthy fats.
Exactly. So, to recap, variety is key. We need a mix of fruits, veggies, healthy fats, and lean proteins to give our eyes all the nutrients they need.
It's about looking at the whole picture, not just focusing on one or two things.
And speaking of the whole picture, we can't forget about our lifestyle choices either. The presentation really emphasized spending time outdoors, especially in natural light.
Yeah, they brought up the Rock 711 program again as a great example of how to incorporate those healthy habits. It's not just about telling kids to go outside. It's about giving them a structured plan that gets them moving and limits their screen time.
Right, and it's not just for kids either. Those same principles apply to adults too.
For sure. Spending time in nature is good for everyone. They also talk about sleep in the presentation. They mentioned something called our circadian rhythm. I'm not totally clear on what that is or how it relates to eye health.
Oh, yeah. Your circadian rhythm is basically your internal clock. It controls your sleep-wake cycle when you feel tired and when you feel awake.
So it's like our body's natural rhythm.
Exactly. And the interesting thing is that our eyes have their own internal clocks too, and those clocks are synced up with our overall circadian rhythm.
So our eyes are on their own schedule, but they're also connected to our body's master clock.
Right. And when that rhythm gets disrupted, it can lead to problems like eye strain, dry eyes, and even more serious vision issues.
So what can we do to keep our circadian rhythm in check?
The presentation suggests establishing a regular sleep-wake cycle, making sure you get enough sleep, and minimizing your exposure to blue light from screens in the evening.
So those late-night scrolling sessions might be doing more harm than just keeping us awake?
Yeah, it's something to think about for sure.
I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together. What we eat, how much time we spend outdoors, how well we sleep. It's all connected.
It really highlights how important it is to take a holistic approach to health. We can't just focus on one thing in isolation. It's about the big picture.
So true. But let's be real, what about people who are already dealing with myopia? Is there anything they can do besides just wearing glasses or contacts?
That's a great question, and it's one we're going to explore in the final part of our deep dive. We'll delve into the latest research on myopia management.
I'm intrigued. Is there actually hope for people who are already nearsighted?
I think you'll be surprised by what we find out. Stay tuned.
Okay, so we're back. and I'm ready to learn about what people who already have myopia can do.
Yeah, let's talk about myopia management. It's an exciting area of research.
The presentation mentioned some promising stuff, right?
Definitely. What's really encouraging is that it's not just about accepting myopia as something you have to live with.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, there are ways to slow down its progression, especially in kids.
And I'm guessing that involves some of the lifestyle changes we've already talked about, right? Like for spending more time outside.
Exactly. Increasing those hours in natural light can actually help slow down how fast the eyeball lengthens, which is what causes myopia.
Wow. So it's not just about protecting our eyes, but actually about how they develop.
Yeah, pretty cool, right? It
Well-
shows how powerful these lifestyle changes can be.
So what about people who already wear glasses or contacts? What are their options?
Well, the presentation mentioned something called orthokeratology,
Ortho what?
ortho-K. It's basically special contact lenses that you wear overnight.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they gently reshape your cornea while you sleep.
The cornea, that's the front of your eye, right?
Yep. And the cool thing is that this reshaping can actually correct your vision during the day.
So you don't need glasses or contacts during the day.
Right.
That sounds almost too good to be true. Is it permanent?
Not quite. You need to wear the lenses regularly to keep that reshaped cornea.
I see. So it's not a cure, but it's an alternative.
Yeah, and it can be a great option, especially for people who are active and don't like wearing glasses, for sports or stuff like that.
That makes sense. So are there other things being researched for myopia management?
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of interest in the role of specific nutrients.
Like those antioxidants we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, things like lutein and zeaxanthin might actually be able to protect the retina from damage caused by myopia.
So those colorful fruits and veggies aren't just for prevention. They can actually help manage the effects of myopia.
It seems like it. It really reinforces the idea that what we eat has a huge impact on our health. Not just preventing disease, but helping our bodies heal and manage things.
This whole deep dive has been incredible. We've learned so much, from the basics of eye health to some really cutting-edge stuff. What would you say is the biggest takeaway?
I think it's that we have more control over our eye health than we realize.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Like from the food we eat to how much time we spend outside, our choices make a difference.
And I love that it's not about scaring people. It's about giving them information and options.
Absolutely. It's about understanding how our lifestyle choices affect our health and then making informed decisions. And it's never too late to make those changes.
So well said. So for our listeners who are inspired to take charge of their eye health, what's one small thing they could do today?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think a simple starting point is just being more aware of how much time you spend outdoors. Maybe try adding a 15-minute walk to your lunch break or swap out some TV time for a walk in the evening. Little things like that can really add up over time.
That's great advice. And for anyone who wants to learn more, remember, this presentation was just a starting point. There's a ton of information out there about nutrition and eye health. Keep learning, keep asking questions, and most importantly, take good care of your eyes.
Absolutely. We'll see you next time.
You've just listened to Exploring Vision, an AI-driven podcast by Novar. Subscribe and be part of our next journey as we uncover fresh insights into vision.